My name is Patricia, and I'm 54. I'd like to say I'm just an ordinary woman, but according to my sister-in-law, I live a privileged life, ignorant of the struggles of an average person. But more on that later. My husband Robert is also 54. Both of us work full-time during the week. We don't have any children. So the reason why my sister-in-law keeps saying I'm privileged and don't know the struggles of an average person is because we live in a nice neighborhood. It's near both downtown Boston and the bustling Chinatown. And of course, it's within walking distance to the local subway station. My grandfather built a house on his land which my parents inherited, and when they passed away, my husband and I gave up our apartment and moved in. Now this sister-in-law who keeps calling me privileged is 46, 8 years younger than me. She often visits our place. Leaving her husband and their 12-year-old child at home, she travels 2 hours from her home to visit us, at least once every 3 months over the weekend. She seems to love downtown Boston. My sister-in-law is 8 years younger than her brother. Robert was in elementary school when she was born, and he says she was a tiny, adorable baby. Apparently, his parents spoiled her as she was a child born late in their life. But no matter what, I just couldn't bring myself to like my sister-in-law.
It's nice, isn't it, growing up without any struggles in a place like this?
She'd say in a sarcastic tone. Her favorite phrase is, I was born in the countryside where there's nowhere fun to go, while a princess like you must have grown up all snug and warm without knowing such struggles. It's pretty clear she's not fond of me. Despite this, she likes downtown and Chinatown and keeps visiting us. And of course, she always arrives empty-handed. Her reasoning? Even if I brought a gift from the countryside, you'd just make fun of it. She'd arrive empty-handed and go on about how it's nice to be so close to downtown and Chinatown. You must live a life without any struggles. You can live without a car. Us country folks can't live without a car, so gas costs us a lot of money. When I'd reply, but the area you live is nice too, right? I love it. The air is fresh and the people are kind. She'd retort, What's that, sarcasm? You live in a city where you have anything you need within walking distance and good public transportation. If I said, I don't really go out that much, I'm working during the day, she'd respond, What you really want to say is, Of course, I live by all the major tourist spots unlike you, right? It makes me want to ask who the sarcastic one is here. Her words can be a bit harsh, so I've expressed my discontent to Robert before. But he dismissed it, saying, Oh, my sister's just outspoken. She's very straightforward. Now, amidst all this, I heard that my sister-in-law is planning to build a house. Then, during one of her visits, I asked, Oh, where? To which she responded, Obviously near my current place, Patricia. Unlike you, I had to buy the land. I wasn't born with any property to inherit like you, so there's no way I could afford such a nice area. Must be nice being rich. By this point, I was genuinely frustrated, so I asked, Well, can you tell me how I should have phrased it so I wouldn't have come off as offensive? She just laughed and said, How about you stay quiet? Everything you say sounds offensive anyway. I was left with no choice but to stay silent. From then on, I was completely left out of the conversations. Ever since then, she visits, but doesn't say a word to me. But she still comes, and even more often than before. And that's because Robert allows it. I asked Robert, Hey, isn't it strange that your sister comes over and ignores me? She uses our bathroom and eats our food, and she still ignores me. He just said, Patricia, I told you she's straightforward. You don't have to talk to her either. She leaves her husband and child at home when she visits us, so we wouldn't have to keep them company as well. It means you don't have to care for her either. But still, one day she went out to Chinatown, came back, used the bathroom, and went to bed, all without saying a word. The next morning she ate the breakfast I had prepared, but didn't even thank me and left. Since when did our place turn into an inn? Am I a cook, a maid, and a hotel manager? I feel like we should be charging her for a season pass at this point. 3 months later, she visited us again. Today, she's planning to explore the town. But that evening, she spent a long time talking with Robert. She stayed the night and left the next day. But Robert was excited and showed me a bunch of pictures. Hey, look at this. It's the house my sister built. Oh, her house is all built now. You're going to love this. He showed me a picture of a pristine white building. Indeed, it looked newly built and was very pretty. Isn't this amazing? Robert enthusiastically showed me another picture. I tilted my head. At first glance, it looked like a garage, but from looking at the mop in the picture, I could tell it wasn't big enough to fit a car. Huh? Is that... That's right, isn't it amazing? Robert exclaimed proudly and then shouted out. It's a garage for a motorcycle and it's custom made. My Harley can fit in here. What? I was completely stunned. Yeah, like I said, I can fit my Harley here. I don't understand what you mean. This is your sister's house, isn't it? Well, I've been talking with her about swapping houses for a while. What? Caught off guard by this unexpected response and development, I was shocked. I dropped my plate that I was holding. She's been saying that she likes this house's location for a while now, and I was saying that I don't like how old this house is since it's been passed down from your family for generations. Then she says,
Well, how about I build a new house here and we swap houses?
So I had her build a special motorcycle garage there so I can park my Harley. Wait, huh? What? He never discussed any of this with me. I don't want to leave this house. It's not like I have any particular feelings about her house. Actually, I can't even process it all yet. Robert started to get irritated, perhaps because he didn't expect my objection. As far as I'm concerned, his reaction was unexpected. What are you hesitating for? My sister and I have been discussing this for a while. So what? I was never included in any of those discussions. You guys have been ignoring me this whole time. But think about it, it's a great deal. It even comes with a garage for my motorcycle. Wait, what about me? You like to watch suspense shows, right? There's a TV in their house, too. Indeed, Robert loves motorcycles. He treasures his Harley-Davidson almost as much as his own life. As for me, I don't have much of a hobby, but if I had to pick, I like watching suspense shows like CSI or Columbo on Netflix. But my commute... Your bus and train ride is only going to be slightly longer, that's all. Slightly longer? It's going to be an extra 2 hours. Well, I can ride my Harley. A 2-hour commute might do you good. You've been gaining some weight recently too, so consider this as a great opportunity to lose weight. Lose weight? Even then a 2-hour commute is absurd. I can't do that every day. But his mind was already filled with dreams of the new house and its dedicated garage for his Harley. He was genuinely surprised and annoyed that I had somewhat of an attachment to our old house. Finally, he gave me an ultimatum. I'm giving our house to my sister and her husband. Theirs is a new house with a garage for my bike. What's there to refuse? If you don't agree, I'll divorce you, he declared. Wait, divorce? Did he just threaten me with divorce? I was taken aback. All right, just give me a night to think about it. I barely managed to utter those words. I crawled into our bed. Shocked, I just spaced out for about 2 hours. A new house with a garage for his bike. It seemed like it was built solely for Robert's benefit. I mean, his sister and her husband didn't even own a bike. That meant they had built the house with the intention of taking ours from the start. And the fact that Robert agreed without consulting me just added insult to injury. And to top it off, he told me he'd divorce me if I didn't agree. It was no different from a threat. I'm not going to forgive him for this. And so, for the next 8 hours until the break of dawn, I hustled with my phone. The following day, I told Robert that I agreed we would move out. I did ask for a couple conditions. 1, to give me 2 weeks to pack since I work on the weekdays, and 2, they can't move in until we've moved out, right? I asked. Well, yeah, I suppose so. Robert agreed. You got them to build a garage, right? So as a sign of gratitude, I want to make sure we leave this house in a pristine state. Let's have the house professionally cleaned and hand it over 2 weeks after we leave." Robert agreed to this as well. Satisfied, I called 2 places while Robert wasn't around. The next 2 weeks flew by. Robert was happily packing, singing some weird song about his Harley. I asked my sister-in-law over the phone, "How large are the rooms in your house?" to decide on our furniture arrangement. They would also call about our layout. As they're moving from an apartment, a notice of just 4 weeks for moving is quite short. They seem to be preparing for their move in a rush. Then on moving day, "Hello, we're from U-Haul Moving and Storage," said the movers upon arrival. Please come in this way," Robert directed the workers. However, shortly after, "Hello, we're from 2 Men in a Truck," said another group of movers. "What?" Robert was surprised. I slid past my surprised husband. Please come in this way," and ushered the workers in. "Hold on, what's going on?" Robert shouted. "What's going on? I said we could move, so I'm moving to my new home. Okay, everyone, the boxes with the yellow tape are mine. Please take those this way. I'll need U-Haul to take the rest with them," I quickly instructed. And an hour later, "Well then, thanks for everything. I'll mail you the divorce papers later." "Hold on a second," Robert shouted in panic. I turned back slightly. "You were the one who wanted a divorce, remember?" Leaving Robert behind, I quickly left the scene and got in the taxi I had called for. But it was a very short ride. "Long day, huh?" A man who had been waiting approached me. It was my older brother, Dave. Dave had come to help me move. "Well, it's good that you found a place in 2 weeks. "It's a rental, but yeah." "Well, once everything settles down, you can start looking for an apartment or something. But man, what a disaster." "It's more than just a disaster. Anyway, I labeled all the necessary household items like the rice cooker with yellow tape, so I'll still be fine on my own." Dave helped me out. Even though the movers took care of the large items, I still needed help for the rest, so it was a huge help. And with Dave's help, I finished moving within the day. "Well then, call me in a couple weeks." My brother left. 2 weeks passed since the day of my move. My phone rang, just as expected. "Hello?" On the other end was my sister-in-law.
"What the hell is going on?"
I just listened to her quietly. "The house is gone." I stifled a laugh and looked down. Not being able to speak was killing me.
"It's an empty lot. Why aren't you saying anything?"
"You remember, you told me to keep my mouth shut." My sister-in-law screamed at the top of her lungs. I finally burst out laughing. It seems my sister-in-law and Robert are together. The phone was handed over to Robert. "Did you really have to go that far?" he yelled in a voice close to tears. "Look who's talking. You're the one who threatened me." I was literally in stitches. Besides, I told you that I wanted to make it clean, didn't I?
Your idea of clean is way off.
It's the ultimate state of clean, a fresh start. Robert was clenching his fists in frustration. "Anyway, come over now so we can talk." "There's nothing I need to talk to you about." "If you refuse, I won't sign the divorce papers." "You remember, the day I refused to leave the house, you threatened to divorce me. Look at how quick you've changed your mind."
"Shut up."
"All right, I'll go to your place, but I'm too scared to go alone, so I'll bring someone with me." And so I contacted my brother. "Is this my cue? Here I come." What a reliable brother he is. "Thank you all for gathering today." My sister-in-law's husband, who I hadn't seen since the wedding, began as if initiating another wedding ceremony. My sister-in-law's husband seemed timid. Me, Dave, my husband, his sister, and her husband all took seats around the table in my husband's new home. We couldn't have children present with us, so we had them in the room next to ours. However, the atmosphere in our room was tense. My sister-in-law had come here high-spirited, but was stunned when she saw an empty lot where the house was once built. But since they had already ended the lease of their apartment, they couldn't go back. In a rush, He had the movers bring all of his stuff into his sister's newly built house. As a result, there were 2 of everything, 2 cabinets, 2 tables, which made the space incredibly cramped. I was shocked to see everything in doubles. It was like a broadcasting accident you'd hear about on TV.
Seriously, why would you take the place down? You took it too far.
That's right, just because my sister is laid back and you're the sensitive type, doesn't mean you can do this to her. How low can you be? Robert and his sister were yelling their heads off. I laughed. I inherited that land and house. It was originally my grandfather's, so I can do whatever I want with it. What? My husband was taken aback, and my brother then chimed in. Basically, that land and house were inherited by Patricia, so they're her individual property and don't fall under marital assets. In other words, you, her husband, don't have the right to decide whether to give them to your sister or anything like that.
Huh?
What? My sister-in-law and husband were left speechless by the unexpected turn of events. Well, then you could have told us that first. Then it would have been all fine.
Well, then you could have told us that first. Then it would have been all fine.
Typical Robert and Patricia, always on the same wavelength. So I guess we're now shifting blames. We were silenced too, we protested. You threatened me with divorce and told me not to talk to your sister, so I couldn't say anything. Patricia was being threatened with divorce and you wouldn't even let us speak to your sister. What else could we have done? We tagged up his siblings and questioned them. So I decided to sell the property. The house was too big for me to live by myself anyway. The truth is, the next day after I was threatened with divorce, I made 2 phone calls. One was to Dave, and the other was to a demolition company. They said it would take 10 days to demolish the house. It takes my sister-in-law about 2 hours one way, 4 hours round trip to get here. If she was given short notice for the move, she would have been too busy packing to make the trip. The same goes for my husband, who moved to a newly built home near his sister's apartment, and thus our reprisal was set in motion. Their new home was nothing but an empty lot.
Enough is enough. We've lost our home, you know. Not only that, but we had to move twice, because we temporarily moved into Robert's house when we found out our house was gone, which doubled our moving costs.
Do I look like I care? You should be thankful you're not being sued for trespassing on my property. You couldn't move in because it was razed to the ground, so you dodged a bullet. Ha 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 ha. I couldn't help but laugh. Then I said to my husband, "Do you really think a woman who nags about every little expense is laid back? You're really funny." Dave chimed in. Being dismissive of others doesn't make you laid back, it only makes you shallow. Does that mean you didn't have Patricia's permission when all this moving business started? My quiet brother-in-law finally spoke up. That's right, she told us to shut up, and my husband threatened me. They just went ahead and got all excited on their own. I revealed everything. Then the usually timid brother-in-law started to shake with anger. Hey, what the heck were you thinking? You've been wasting money in Boston and Chinatown for the past 3 months. You left me and the kids while you went on a shopping spree. And since you've decided to live there, you said you didn't need a car anymore and sold it. We can't live without a car here, but this house only has a motorcycle garage. Do you not realize how you screwed everyone in your family? Well, what's gotten into you? My sister-in-law was clearly shaken. I suppose she had never seen him this angry before. Patricia, my brother-in-law, continued. This one here, she told me, I'm going to take my brother's house and move. If you disagree, I'll divorce you. What? It's surprising how much brothers and sisters can think alike. I was genuinely about to burst into laughter. I knew my stomach was going to be all sore tomorrow from laughing too much. But since I'm a software engineer who can work from anywhere, and I thought it would be sad for the kids if their mom wasn't around, I agreed to her demand. But now that things have come down to this, I realized how my wife's selfishness could hurt my whole family. Besides, what you said earlier about Robert's statement, that woke me up finally. He then took a deep breath and looking at his wife said, You threatened me. And finally he said, Well, it's over for us too. I will protect and raise the kids. I'll go along with your threat as if it were a proposition. Well, now it's my turn. Looking at my husband, I also delivered the final blow. Robert, I'll also accept your demand as a proposition. We are truly finished now. Goodbye. Oh, hold on. If I lose the house, that means the situation has changed, right?
Exactly. The situation has changed, so it's not fair to cut us off like this.
The siblings both started shouting. I just brushed them off with my brother-in-law. You guys created this ridiculous situation, got all excited, and now you're just back to where you started, said my sister-in-law's husband. After that, my sister-in-law's husband and I each hired a lawyer, and each pursued a mediated divorce. The newly built house that my sister-in-law had built was apparently going to go to her husband, along with custody of the kids. My sister-in-law, who was a spendthrift and always out and about, always left the kids' care to her husband, even on weekends, and her kids indeed felt distant and lonely. But now that they're living with just their father, they said they're happier now, since they know their father will always be there for them. The new house ended up belonging to my sister-in-law's ex-husband, because my sister-in-law didn't have enough income to make the mortgage payments. The fact that she was able to squander money in Boston every 3 months, despite having no income, was astonishing. In the end, her splurging habit didn't change, and I heard she was buried in debt. The motorcycle garage was going to be torn down to be converted into a parking lot. My ex-husband, who had also been working all this while, found that he couldn't afford to invest in a Harley once he was kicked out of my house. He lost a significant amount of property in the divorce and had to let go of his Harley. Losing his Harley and his hobby, he vented his frustrations on the lawyer and ended up drowning his sorrows in alcohol. I turned the vacant lot where my house used to be into a parking lot. It's close to Boston and Chinatown, so I was able to charge a high price for parking, and that became a steady income. With that as my starting capital, I ended up buying an apartment. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, but it's quite cozy. I sat in front of the big screen TV with a smirk on my face. My favorite show, CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, is on. Here's my moment to watch it with a beer in hand, uninterrupted. It feels amazing. I took a bath, and I have the ultimate combo. No makeup, pajamas, beer, big screen, CSI. I've got my nuts and snacks, and I'm sinking into the couch as I press the power button on the remote.
Idiots who can't speak aren't family. We're giving her to the hag. Get out. What on earth are you doing? I pushed past my defiant son and his wife, protectively hugging my granddaughter, who was clutching her cheek in pain, glaring at them. The unrepentant couple continued to belittle their mute daughter. Unable to stand it anymore, I decided to raise my granddaughter myself and took her home. 10 years later, when we returned to our home country from overseas, my son and his wife showed up. We missed you. We're family, aren't we? Let's live together. Idiots aren't family. Please go back. My name is Margaret Patterson, a 60-year-old housewife. A few years ago, I lost my husband, and I've been living alone in a large house. I considered living with my son, Jack, and his wife, Mary, but I decided it would be better to live separately. For some reason, I just couldn't get along with my own child and his wife. Besides, I might end up helping out in the bar they run. My body isn't as agile as it used to be, and embarrassingly enough, I'm not good at customer service. If we were to live and work together, it would probably stress us both out. So I decided not to live together. Even after my husband passed away and I started living alone, Jack never suggested we live together. I appreciated that. I was finally free from child rearing and caring for my husband, so I decided to enjoy my time alone. But once I started living alone, it was lonelier than I had thought. I didn't have any hobbies or friends, as I had spent all my time on housework, child rearing, and caregiving. I spent every day watching reruns of TV dramas to pass the time. Even when I tried to establish new habits, they didn't last long. For me, living such a boring daily life, the presence of my 2 granddaughters was very significant. Emily, the eldest, is 10 years old, and the second daughter, Lily, is 6 years old. They're both very cute girls. Emily is beautiful and good at acting like an adult. On the other hand, Lily is a bit clumsy and quiet. She's often compared to her beautiful and mature older sister, and she feels lonely. I love both of them, but I was particularly on Lily's side. I could see that she seemed to be disliked by both her parents and Emily. My son and his wife, Jack and Mary, would bring my granddaughters to visit about once every 2 months. "Grandma!" Emily would run to me with an innocent smile. Her clothes were always new, and her long hair was always adorably done up. On the other hand, Lily's clothes were always Emily's worn-out hand-me-downs. Her hair was also left untamed and messy. Lily loved to talk and was chatty since she started to speak. But recently, she became quieter, and unlike Emily's bright smile, Lily often looked down with a gloomy face. After greeting Emily with a "nice to see you," I crouched down in front of Lily and spoke to her. "Lily dear, welcome. Thank you for coming." "I prepared some of your favorite sweets today. Let's eat together."
Grandma, what about my sweets?
"Of course, I have yours too. Let's go." As I held hands with the girls, Jack and Mary got out of the car and called out to me. "Hey Mom, long time no see. Here's a souvenir." "Oh, thank you. Have you two been well? Please, make yourselves at home." "Thank you, Mother-in-law." I welcomed my son and my daughter-in-law and granddaughters into my house, served them tea and sweets, and entertained them. Jack and Mary would talk only with Emily and not pay any attention to Lily. Whenever I tried to speak to Lily, Emily would interrupt, or Jack and Mary would start a different topic. I was concerned about their attitude towards Lily, but I thought it best not to interfere too much and just kept an eye on them. However, I would later regret this approach. One day, I had plans to visit Jack and Mary's house and brought along some sweets that they and the girls liked. Upon arriving at their house, I reached out to ring the doorbell. Just then, I heard Jack yelling something from inside the house. "Why don't you say something instead of just being quiet?" I was shocked. As I reached for the front door, it opened easily. Without hesitation, I removed my shoes, and as I walked down the hallway, I could hear the voices coming from upstairs.
You know it's because you don't talk at school that I'm being embarrassed, right?
As I climbed the stairs, the shouting continued, followed by a sharp, dry sound. Upon opening the door from where the sound came, I found Jack and Mary scolding Lily, who was sitting on the floor, while Emily was waving her hand as if in pain. Lily was about to cry and holding her cheek, and Emily seemed to be in pain, waving her hand around. "Hey, Lily, you got smacked by your sister, didn't you? How about saying it hurts? If you can't speak, you're no longer family. Get out. We'll send you to Hag's home." "What the hell are you guys doing?" I brushed aside my son and his wife and Emily, hugged Lily, who was sitting on the floor to protect her, and glared at them. The three of them were momentarily surprised, but quickly regained their composure. "Mom, what are you doing barging in like that? You should have rang the doorbell first." "That's right, Margaret. Aren't you rude?" "What's rude is what you guys are doing. Surrounding and berating a little girl? Jack, aren't you a father? Aren't you ashamed to mistreat your child? And Emily, why did you hit your sister?" For the first time, I scolded Emily loudly. She seemed scared for a moment, but lowered her head and said, "'Cause..." Mary pulled Emily towards her, hugged her, and glared at me. "Please don't blame Emily." I glared back without backing down. Protecting Emily, who hit her sister, is not the right response for a mother. Jack, who was watching, pointed at me and yelled, "Mom, what are you thinking? Get away from that idiot." "The idiots are you guys. Apologize to Lily." Huh? Who's going to apologize? Neither Jack, Mary, nor Emily seemed to show any remorse and relentlessly insulted Lily. Lily, who was in my arms, was grabbing my clothes weakly with a vacant look on her face. Had they been doing this to her all along? Before I could think, I lifted Lily and declared, "I will take care of Lily. I can't leave her here." Leaving the 3 stunned people behind, I stormed out of the room. After standing still for a while, Jack came running up with a smirk on his face. "Thanks, Mom. I didn't know how to handle this mute." As I was stunned by my son's words, Mary appeared from behind. She was holding a tattered little carry-on bag and a backpack. "This is Lily's stuff. Please take care of the rest," Mary said, passing the bags roughly to me. Both Lily and I were speechless, looking up at the faces of my son and my daughter-in-law. They were clearly pleased that Lily was leaving their home. Astonished, I left their house without saying a word. In silence, I returned home and took off Lily's shoes at the entrance. Then she sniffled. Looking at Lily's face, I saw her biting her lip with tears streaming down. I hugged Lily, gently patting her on the back. "Lily, it's been hard on you. I'm sorry I couldn't help you until now. But it's going to be okay. Grandma's on your side now. I will protect you." From that day, Lily and I started living together. Because of the hurt she'd experienced from her parents, she stopped speaking. Even a simple good morning seemed impossible for her to vocalize. Her teacher told me that she had been unable to communicate with her classmates or teachers at school. Worried, I took her to the hospital for a medical checkup. Lily was diagnosed with selective mutism. The doctor speculated that the extreme stress she had suffered from her parents and sister had caused severe anxiety and fear, making her unable to speak even if she tried. The doctor reassured me that as she got used to her new environment, she would gradually be able to speak again. On the way home from the hospital, I bought Lily a cute notebook and a pen. "Listen, Lily, if you have something you want to tell me or anyone else, write it in this notebook. Draw pictures or write words. Then try to voice the words you wrote, even just a little at a time, okay?" Lily quickly opened the notebook and began writing with the pen. As I silently watched, she showed me the page she had been writing on. On it were the words, "Thank you, Grandma," along with a sketch of my face. Lily opened her mouth and tried to say, that, but she couldn't get the words out and looked down, disappointed. "Lily, you're doing great. Keep it up 1 step at a time. Well done. Gold star for you." As I patted her head, Lily looked up and managed a faint smile. She started using the notebook and pen I bought for her to communicate at school. I guess she's gaining confidence. She gradually learned to speak, and 2 years later, she could speak normally. Grandma, today at school." The moment Lily returned home, she'd report to me about the happenings at school. Seeing how she'd fully recovered and was brimming with life put my mind at ease. Then one day, I visited the school for a 3-way conference. Upon entering the classroom, a kind-looking teacher greeted us. Both Lily and I responded with a "Hello, teacher," and took our seats. As I discussed Lily's behavior at school and at home, she shyly squirmed in her seat. "Lily's grades have been consistently improving since last year. Take a look at this," the teacher said, showing us her report card. The chart indicated a steady upward trend since she began living with me and had shot up significantly recently. I'm sure it's because she's so dedicated to studying. She's been reading difficult books and solving complex problems almost every day, I explained, patting Lily's head. Ever since she learned to speak, she'd been passionate about studying. At home, she'd delve into complex books and study, and on test day, she'd present me with perfect scores. I framed and hung all her perfect test papers, looking at them with a sense of pride. I see. In that case, how about taking an IQ test at the hospital? Suggested the teacher. IQ test? When I asked for clarification, the teacher explained, "Lily might be gifted." Gifted refers to children who are naturally very intelligent. Lily seemed to be just as smart, if not more so, than an adult. The teacher suggested that it might be worth getting an IQ test done so that we could provide an educational environment suitable for her exceptional talents. So I immediately took Lily to the hospital for an IQ test. As the teacher had suspected, Lily was indeed gifted. I was amazed to find out that Lily had such an amazing ability. When I asked her, "How did you find the studies in elementary school? Is it fun?" she responded with a bored expression.
Well, to be honest, it's too easy and I find it boring. I want to study something more challenging. But if I tell the teacher, they get confused.
Hearing her words, I started to ponder. I wondered if Lily could pursue the kind of studies she wished for in America. The studies that Lily desires are probably at a middle school or high school level. I wondered if Lily, who has not yet graduated from elementary school, could handle this. I consulted with her homeroom teacher. The teacher then told me about the grade skipping system in the US. The teacher suggested that if Lily went to America, she could pursue the study she desired. It reminded me that my late husband's brother was working in America. I hadn't been in touch with him since my husband passed away, but he might be able to help. As soon as I reached out and consulted with him, he said he would support our life in the US. Relieved, I suggested to Lily the idea of studying abroad in America.
I want to go if it's with Grandma, but I want to graduate from elementary school with my friends first.
All right, I understand. I'll also learn English by the time you graduate. At that response, Lily smiled relieved. She made many memories in elementary school and graduated without any issues. Since we exchanged contact information, she can communicate with her friends even overseas. I decided not to mention the study abroad plan to Jack and Mary. I thought they might try to take her back if they found out Lily was gifted in order to use her. Lily quickly adjusted to life in the US and studied by skipping grades. I supported her with all my might. When I saw Lily saying, "Studying is more fun than before," I truly felt glad that we came to the US. Her talent is truly incredible. After a few years of studying in the US, she enrolled in Harvard University, studied business, and before I knew it, she had started her own company. "I want to repay my grandma," Lily said enthusiastically. "For me, she's already repaid me enough." After all, Lily has grown up and become a wonderful adult. Her achievements were featured on American news, spread worldwide, and she became a celebrity. In all likelihood, Lily's name is known in the worldwide as well. I wonder what Jack and Mary think of her achievements. I would be happy if they regret how they've treated her. 10 years after Lily started her company, for work reasons, Lily and I returned back to our country. We rented a new apartment, and while we were living there, the doorbell rang. I thought it might be a circulated notice, and without any suspicion, I opened the door. "It's been a while, Mom. Have you been doing well?" "Jack, and Mary too, why are you here?" Upon seeing the two faces, I couldn't help but shudder. I had changed my contact information and was living far away from the house I had lived in before. How did they find me here? Ignoring my surprise, Mary called out into the house. "Hey, Lily, you're here, right? It's your mom. I've come to see you after such a long time." "What do you want? Please don't approach my daughter." "Don't be cold, Mom. We are Lily's parents after all." "That's right, mother-in-law. Lily is here, right? Please let us meet her." "Wait, don't just barge in like that." Without giving me a chance to stop them, the two of them pushed past me and entered the house. As I was trying to stop them, Lily peeked out from the living room. "What's wrong, Grandma? Wait, what?" Lily, too, seemed surprised by the sudden visitors. I awkwardly turned my face away. On the other hand, my son and his wife seemed delighted to finally see Lily. "Oh, Lily, I've missed you. You've grown so much." As Mary reached out to hug her, Lily brushed off her arms. If you want to talk, I'll listen in the living room. I'll prepare some tea, so please wait on the sofa. With a cold statement, Lily began preparing tea in the kitchen. Jack and Mary unreservedly plopped themselves down on the sofa and started reminiscing with her one-sidedly. Growing concerned, I called out to Lily. She winked at me, signaling to leave it to her. When I sat down opposite them, I was immediately confronted with the main issue. The pub my son and his wife were running had gone out of business due to poor management. Their older daughter Emily had also gone off the grid since she started working, and they had no idea what she was doing or where she was now. Jack and Mary, having lost their jobs, were currently living in poverty and had no idea when they would run out of savings. Hey, Lily, would you consider supporting us? You ran away from home at 6, but until then, we raised you. You should pay your respects. Lily, you must have felt lonely not being able to see us all this time, right? But let's live together from now on. Let's create memories as a family, making up for the time we were apart. I couldn't stand to watch my son and his wife pathetically pleading with Lily. While it pains me to say this about my own son, I just can't understand how he turned out this way. Where did I go wrong in raising him? Lost in my own guilt, I was snapped back to reality by Lily's voice. Idiots aren't my family. My only family is Grandma. Please see yourselves out. She wore a cool smile I had never seen before. But Lily... Wait, please. Regardless of their pleas to live together, Lily didn't budge. She forcefully pushed them out the front door, locking it with a definitive click. Looking out the window, I could see my son and my daughter-in-law slinking away with slumped shoulders. Grandma, what is it, dear? Should we move? With those words, she laughed. She apparently had been secretly planning to build a house for us to live in together. She designed it with accessibility in mind for my sake. Thank you, Lily. As I thanked her, she blushed and gave an embarrassed laugh. Several months later, we moved into our new home. Thanks to the accessible features Lily planned, I'm living comfortably. Our shared memories are framed and displayed on the walls. Even the notebook and pen we bought when we first started living together are there. Every time I see them, I'm moved to tears. Today, I think I'll make Lily's favorite dish for her. With that thought, I headed to the kitchen to start cooking. My name is Karen. I'm 30 years old, married for 2 years, and work as an office worker. My husband, Robert, is 5 years older and works for a major corporation. Robert has always lived in the neighborhood, and me being an only child, he was like my big brother to me. But once we started working, we moved away from our hometown and lost touch. We ran into each other at a local festival 3 years ago and got in touch again. Soon, we realized we had developed feelings for each other and started dating. We got married shortly after that, and our parents were delighted. However, soon after our marriage, Robert's company went bankrupt and he became unemployed. I supported us financially during that time, and Robert worked hard to find a job. After about 6 months, he finally secured a position in the current company, so we breathed a sigh of relief. Not only that, but Robert has shown remarkable growth at his new workplace and is now being considered for a promotion. Things were going well until Robert started turning outright arrogant. I don't know how much he makes because he hands me cash for living expenses, but he seems to be earning a decent amount. He has begun to flaunt his wealth, collecting expensive watches that he doesn't even wear, and going on so-called business trips. Robert usually comes home late, so it's a given that he doesn't do his share of housework. If I point out what he hasn't done, he tries to solve it with money. Did you clean up? Oh, I forgot. But you're home more, so just do it without complaining. I can give you extra pocket money if you want. I don't like his attitude, and it often leads to fights. What do you mean pocket money? That's not the point. Then, Robert always leaves the house or locks himself in his room, making it impossible to have a conversation. I have no proof, but I suspect he's having an affair. Our standard of living has clearly gotten better. We've moved from an old apartment to a nice condominium. But despite these material comforts, I've only been feeling less happy. One day, while I was at work, I received a phone call. "Your mother collapsed!" It was my father on the line. I rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. My mother had a chronic illness that worsened, and she had collapsed at home. By the time my father came home, it was already too late. In deep sorrow, I started preparing for my mother's funeral with my father. I called Robert multiple times, but he didn't answer. He finally called back around the usual time he gets home. I picked up the call from Robert. "Karen, why aren't you home? You called me several times during work. What's going on?" Robert, arriving home, finally realizes that I'm not there and calls me. "I'm sorry, Robert, my mom, she passed away." I tell him, holding back tears. But the response I get is unimaginably harsh. "What? She passed away? Don't call me for something like that. Such a nuisance." I was stunned by his words and couldn't hold back my tears anymore. "Is that all it is to you? My mother's death, is that all it is? I can't believe it. I have to prepare for the funeral, so I'm staying at my parents' house tonight. The wake is tomorrow and the funeral is the day after, so I'll be waiting here." I'm sad and frustrated. My emotions are all over the place, but somehow I managed to relay the necessary information. "You're not coming back? What about my dinner? If you're not going to be home, just say so. Fine, I'll go out for drinks or something." Robert's words just passed right through me. "What time can you make it tomorrow?" I managed to squeeze out those words. "Tomorrow? Tomorrow's gonna be tough. I have an important business meeting. The day after is not gonna work either." "But that's a problem. You can take a leave of absence due to family loss, right? For as long as you can get here sometime after lunch tomorrow, it will be fine, so..." It's unbelievable that he won't come to the funeral when his wife's mother has passed away. Despite my plea, Robert dismisses it with a single word: busy. It got to my limit and I snapped at him. "My mother just passed away. She took care of you since you were young. You should come and say your final goodbye." My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she would often help Robert's parents, who both worked, by providing meals. We've known each other as families for a long time, and yet he doesn't even feel the need to come to the funeral? Maybe because I yelled, Robert said, "Fine, I got it, I'll be there tomorrow," and hung up in an annoyed tone. The next day, many people gathered for the wake. Of course, Robert's parents were there too. "Karen, isn't Robert here yet?" His mother asks, and I realize that Robert hasn't arrived yet. I was busy with preparations and thought he had already arrived. The wake is about to start. When I call Robert, he surprisingly picks up right away. "Robert, are you still at work? What time do you think you can get here?" Then he grumbled in a foul mood. "I'm still working. I can't go today," as he yelled. There's no point in talking to him anymore. I gave up for the day, told him the time of the funeral tomorrow, and hung up the phone. Robert's parents apologized profusely to my father and me, and had called Robert numerous times, but their calls never went through. I believed he would at least come to the funeral, but Robert did not show up the next day either. To make matters worse, when I called him, he said, "I earn a great hourly wage. I could go, but can you afford it?" I had had enough. I no longer care about him. It was all about money again. No matter how much money one has, or how good a life one leads, I can't stand to be with a person who has no morals. I decided to get a divorce. Amid all this, at the funeral, a woman approached me. "You're Karen, right? I'm a classmate of your mother, and we just had tea recently." She told me through her tears, and I inadvertently shed tears too. The woman continued to ask, "Where is your husband?" When I responded that he was busy with work and couldn't make it, the woman began to quietly rage. "He can't come because of work. That can't be true." I was confused because I didn't understand what she meant, but she noticed and explained to me. "I'm an executive at Robert's company. I heard there was a brilliant guy who had just joined, but when I hear the story, I realized it was your husband, Karen. But he seems to have started slacking off at work recently, and apparently there were complaints from clients just yesterday too." I was surprised to hear this, but perhaps the reason he yelled when I called him yesterday was because he was in a bad mood due to that complaint. I wanted to know more about it, but the lady, being considerate, left without delving deeper into the conversation. That night, I once went back home and packed all the essentials. Robert was not home yet and didn't answer his phone either. I left a note saying I'd be going to my parents' house for a while and left the house. The next day, I got a message from the executive woman. It seemed that Robert had submitted his leave of absence and was off again that day. But when I told her that he had not shown up for the funeral after all, she muttered, I figured, and told me everything. At last she said, I think he will be fired on the spot. The next time he comes to the office, his seat will probably be gone. The call from Robert came the following night. When are you coming back? He sounded grumpy, but I wasn't afraid. I had no feelings left for this man anymore. I'll be picking up my things soon. Huh? I won't be coming back. What are you talking about? Robert responded in a ridiculing tone. Let's get a divorce. When I firmly said so, Robert laughed derisively. Divorce? Why are we suddenly talking about that? I can't live with a man who doesn't even attend his wife's mother's funeral. That's beyond wrong. Oh, right. Do whatever you want. You're the one who's going to struggle without me around, Karen. I'll come by tomorrow, Saturday. I'll be picking up my things and bringing the divorce papers. Be home, okay? I had everything prepared and was ready for anything. The next day, I headed home with the divorce papers. When I opened the door, Robert was sleeping on the couch. Empty beer cans were scattered on the table. Then I felt something was off. As I glanced towards the bathroom, a woman came out. Huh? When I inadvertently mumbled, the woman noticed me and gasped. At her voice, Robert jolted awake. What the hell are you doing here? Robert stuttered, gaping at me. I told you I'd be coming to pick up my stuff today, right? With the divorce papers? The woman who came out of the bathroom stood still for a while, but seemingly understanding of the situation, she slipped out the front door. Well, I know who she is and where she's from. It doesn't matter that she's not here now. Then Robert, all flustered, began to make excuses like, That's not what it looks like. She works under me, and she came over for some drinks last night. I didn't lend an ear to what he was saying. I don't care about that right now. This is our property division agreement, and these are the divorce papers. I don't want to drag this out, so please go over and sign them quickly. Then, as Robert skimmed through the property division document, a smug expression spread across his face. Property division, huh? Well, I suppose there's no help for it. You're gonna need money to live on your own from now on. Fine, I'll give you this much. With that, he filled in the divorce papers and handed them to me. We're strangers now, huh? I was so disgusted by his smug face that I grabbed the divorce papers and walked out the front door. Later, I submitted the divorce papers to the city hall, and we were officially strangers to each other. Yet, a few days later, Robert visited my parents' home. Karen, what the hell is this? Oh, it arrived, didn't it? What Robert had in his hand was a bill for alimony. It was something I had claimed through my lawyer. Damages? What's that about? It says right there. It's for the emotional distress you caused me with harassment and infidelity. Robert had been leaving all the household chores to me and had also verbally abused me. Having fallen into a poor mental state, I had been using my phone's voice recorder to record my daily exchanges with Robert so I could process my situation later. I hadn't thought it would come in handy, but when I played it for my lawyer, he said it was straight up verbal abuse and I could file a lawsuit against it. And then there were the damages for infidelity. Robert, you've been coming home late recently, and I thought you were acting strange. You've been cheating, right? I really believed you wouldn't do something like that, Robert. When I said this calmly, Robert snapped back. No, that's not true. I haven't cheated. You're talking about that woman the other day, right? We all went drinking and she ended up at my place because she missed the last train. There's nothing between us. You got it wrong. Robert denied it persistently. Why do you think I overlooked that woman running away that time? Because I had other evidence. Yes, I am aware that she works under you. You shouldn't have taken any leave of absence just to go on a trip with her. Did you really think you wouldn't get caught? And you've been fired from your job now, haven't you? I do know everything, you know. At that, Robert looked at me with wide eyes. I continued laughing. You always bragged about being on the fast track. I suppose you couldn't admit you'd been fired, could you? I heard you both got fired. Just because your mistress is in the finance department, you can't embezzle your company's money and not get caught. How do you? He probably had thought I wouldn't find out. Robert looked pale and was opening and closing his mouth. One of the people who attended my mother's funeral was an executive from your company. She said she was a classmate of my mother's. She was very angry that you didn't attend the funeral and thought she would give you a good talking to when you returned to the company. But then she realized you were on leave, so she contacted me. Your overnight trip at a tropical resort must have been a blast, huh? With that, I thrust the evidence photos I had been keeping at him. Hey, this is... Robert was visibly paled. Detectives are amazing, aren't they? I never thought they could gather so much evidence. When I received a call from the female executive, my gut feeling was triggered. When I left a note saying I'd be gone for a while, Robert must have assumed he was free to go somewhere. If my gut feeling was right, he was cheating. When I consulted with the female executive, she referred me to a lawyer and a detective. I'd heard that detective services were expensive, but I was certain something would come up in a few days. If so, I could hire them for just that day, and if I can claim damages for his infidelity, it would offset the cost of hiring a detective. I decided to hire them with that in mind. On the day of the farewell ceremony, Robert came home and found out that I won't be coming back. He then left for a trip with his lover on the next day. Enjoy your little affair vacation, not knowing a detective is tailing you or that you've been fired? Must have been a surprise to return to work and find your seat gone, right? Finally, Robert opened his mouth. So, it was all your fault. I couldn't help but laugh hearing that. What did I do? You were the one misusing your leave and embezzling your company's funds, weren't you? I straight up told him. Just because you're jobless now doesn't mean you can avoid paying me alimony. We'll also have property division, and you should be able to pay it all by selling off your unnecessary watch collection. I want my money, and I want it now. With that, I slammed the front door. When the female executive called me, she said I thought so, because she noticed a suspicious movement of their company's funds. The one in charge of accounting, my husband's lover, was suspected. And because she had heard rumors about Robert having an affair with her, she looked into it thoroughly on the same day, and sure enough, they were carrying out an embezzlement. That's probably how they were financing their affair. Both were fired on the spot, it seems. Later, Robert transferred the entire amount of damages at once. I have no idea what he's doing or where he is now. I haven't heard anything, and frankly, I don't care. Despite everything, I am grateful for this outcome. If it weren't for this, I would have never considered breaking up with Robert and would have continued to suffer. Maybe this was the final lesson my mother wanted to teach me. I'm all fine now. I'm living well now, so I can take care of my father.
What are you doing? My angry voice startled my husband, Nick, who scrambled to hide my sister-in-law, Emily. Emily was also flustered. I knew Nick and Emily were close, but this was unbelievable. I couldn't stay silent after such betrayal. I decided to take revenge on Nick and Emily. My name is Catherine, currently working as an accountant in a big corporation. It's mostly clerical work, but it allows me to spend quality time with my family. Nick is 32 like me and works in sales. Our daughter, Lily, is in the 1st grade, and she's such a good and obedient child. I met Nick at a social gathering through mutual friends. He was very straightforward in his approach, so I relented and we started dating. His kindness and sincerity made me feel safe, and I started considering marriage. He felt the same as well, so we got married after dating for 6 months. This was the peak of my happiness. However, there were some things about Nick that felt odd. When I went to visit my in-laws, Nick mostly spoke with Emily and ignored me. I thought they were just close siblings, but their closeness was abnormal. The decisive event that sparked my disdain occurred on the night of our wedding ceremony. After consuming a lot of alcohol, I was lying in bed feeling incredibly happy when Nick cuddled me. I am so happy. So am I. I decided to marry you the moment I saw you, Catherine. Why is that? Because you resembled my beloved sister. Hearing this, I froze. He didn't seem like he was joking because he was drunk. He was severely infatuated with his sister. Eventually, I closed my eyes to Nick's weird affection towards his sister and continued living as a married couple. However, it still irritated me at times. He prioritizes his sister over me, and even over our daughter, Lily. Lily hasn't noticed this about Nick yet, but I believe she eventually will. And when that happens, I'm worried about her getting hurt. One day, unusually, Nick came home drunk. He had said he was staying at his parents' house that night, which made me wonder why he was home. I put him to sleep on the couch and gave him some water. After drinking the water in one go, he told me what had happened at his parents' house. Emily's getting married. Really? Yeah, she was dating someone behind my back. Saying this, he lay back down on the sofa like he was defeated. This was good news for me. Now he would focus on our family. I threw a fist pump without him noticing. Emily is 2 years older than me. It wasn't surprising that she would get married, and now she was finally going to. But it seemed Nick was more shocked by the fact that Emily kept it a secret. Even when we had a dinner with Emily and her fiancé, Nick was sulking the whole time and just ate his meal. He didn't even look at Emily. After that, he stopped visiting his parents' house. Thanks to this, he started spending time with me and Lily. Lily seemed genuinely happy to be able to play with Nick. I watched them with a sense of relief. Then the season turned to summer, and Lily had her first summer vacation. At dinner one night, Nick suddenly suggested going to his parents' house for Independence Day. Mom wants us to come home. What do you think? He used to take us home before he was even invited, but now he sounded reluctant. I could really tell that Nick had changed. Why not? Lily would love to see her grandparents. Well, they want us to stay for about 3 nights, but 1 night is enough, right? As long as you're okay with it, that's fine. So we decided to visit Nick's parents for just 1 day. Lily was very happy about this visit. Nick's parents live a bit far in a place rich in nature. Here, Lily can run around to her heart's content. Lily loves physical activities, so the countryside might suit her well. We packed our bags and headed for Nick's parents' house, which was about an hour and a half away. When Lily and I arrived at the house, Nick's parents greeted us. "Oh, thank you for coming today. You must be tired. I've prepared some tea. Please have some." As we headed into the living room, there was Emily. "Catherine, long time no see." "Long time no see, Emily." As I greeted her, Nick just sat down without saying a word to Emily. It seemed their relationship had really soured. I didn't plan to say anything about it. Then we all, including Lily, had some snacks and tea while chatting. As the conversation between grown-ups continued, Lily, perhaps bored, expressed her desire to play outside. When I was about to accompany her, Emily intervened. "Let me play with you, Lily." Lily nodded energetically and went outside with Emily. Then the pleasant mood changed abruptly. Nick's father started with a serious look. "Catherine, Nick is the eldest son of our family." I instantly understood what he was trying to say. After all, it's meaningless to have him married if we don't have a grandson. Nick's family valued and honored their old lineage and their family history. When New Year's comes around, a decent number of people gather to exchange New Year's greetings. Such old customs still remain. Perhaps that's why Nick's father's mindset is stuck in the 80s. I understand, but children are gifts from above. We can't choose whether they're boys or girls. If it seems unlikely, I think we should consider having Nick remarry. What is this, some old-fashioned mindset? Do I have to get divorced because I can't bear a son? I couldn't believe that Nick's father was suggesting such outrageous ideas with no hesitation. I looked at Nick. Nick, the one in question, was just playing with his phone as if he had nothing to do with the situation. "Hey, why don't you help me out of this situation?" I wanted to hurl such words at Nick, but running away from such troublesome matters was a usual thing for Nick to do. Holding back my anger at Nick, I answered Nick's father. "Is that what Nick said?" Nick's father looked at Nick, but there was no reaction. "I want you to consider that as an option." That sounds like a threat. "We asked you to stay for about 3 days today, but you decided to stay only 1 day. Do you dislike this house so much?" I looked at my husband again. It was Nick's idea to stay only 1 night, but there was no correction from Nick. "That's not true. We discussed this as a family. Do you think Nick is tired of you because of that?" When did Nick ever get tired of me? I wanted to ask, but I decided not to because it was troublesome. After the depressing discussion, I went to see Lily outside. Outside, Lily was happily playing with Emily. "You had a tough time, didn't you? Dad must have said a lot." "Yes, indeed he did." "I'm really sorry. He really is hard-headed with an old-fashioned mindset." "Yes, it seems like it." "Is Nick in his room?" Emily asked timidly. "He might be. I'm not sure. Are you two not getting along well right now? It's my fault for not telling him about my marriage. Why didn't you tell him?" Emily paused to think for a moment before quietly muttering, Because it would make Nick sad. I found Emily's words hard to believe. I couldn't help but sense an unusual discomfort, different from just being close siblings. I'm going to head back home now. Oh, okay. Thank you for everything with Lily. Emily said goodbye to Lily and disappeared into the house. I regained my composure and played with Lily. When Lily expressed her desire to go into the woods, I decided to take her. I wanted to be away from my in-laws for a while. I walked hand in hand with Lily, the words of my in-laws echoing in my mind. I wondered if I would have to deal with them in the future. My husband has always had a habit of avoiding trouble. That's why he was fiddling with his phone, even as I was verbally abused by my father-in-law. He wouldn't stand up for me. As I thought this, tears welled up in my eyes. I wiped them with my hand, careful not to let Lily notice. In doing so, I unintentionally loosened my grip on Lily's hand. Lily wriggled out of my hand and started to run. "Lily, no running!" She ignored my call and continued to run deeper into the woods. When I ran after her, she must have misunderstood it as a game of tag and ran even further away. "Watch out!" I spotted a large rock in Lily's path and called out to her. But Lily didn't notice and tripped over the stone, falling down. By the time I reached her, my usually resilient daughter was crying loudly. Feeling that something had happened, I checked her leg. A copious amount of blood was flowing from Lily's right leg. At a loss for words at the sudden situation, I realized my phone was back at the in-laws' house. I quickly composed myself, hoisted Lily onto my back, and made our way down the mountain. Once back at the entrance, I laid Lily down and called for an ambulance with my phone from my bag. In the meantime, I attempted to disinfect the wound, but couldn't locate where the disinfectant was stored in the in-laws' house. Deciding to ask my husband, I raced towards his room. As I flung open the door to his room, an unbelievable sight met my eyes. My husband was lying on his bed. Next to him, a naked woman. Unbelievably, it was Emily, my sister-in-law. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted instinctively. Startled by my voice, my husband sprang up and hastily tried to cover Emily. Their actions told me all I needed to know, and my mind went blank with panic and anger. What's going on? Emily was more flustered than my husband. Both of them were scrambling for words to explain, but their words were meaningless to me as my blood boiled in fury. Not only was my husband not on my side, but he was also engaging in such a treacherous act. My feelings for my husband rapidly faded. "Lily is hurt, so I'm taking her to the hospital in an ambulance. You just stay here and have a good time with your sister." With that, I forcefully shut the door behind me. I carried my bags and got into the ambulance. My husband had cheated on me, and his partner was none other than Emily. I always felt that they were really close, but this? I began to slowly accept what I had witnessed. While processing all of this, I started to think of my next move. After reaching the hospital, Lily, who had seemingly cried herself out, was peacefully asleep. The doctor informed me that a few stitches would heal her wound quickly. There was no need for her to be hospitalized. I sighed with relief. I gently stroked the head of my sleeping Lily. For me, the only thing that mattered now was Lily. I wanted to do only what was best for Lily. For that, I had to sever ties with my in-laws, including my husband. On top of that, I wanted to get back at Emily. With Lily's foot bandaged, we headed home. I had no intention of ever returning to my in-laws' house. The events at their house were hellish. I filled out the divorce papers. I informed my parents about the situation and conveyed my intention to get a divorce. My parents supported my decision. With their support, I was now determined to proceed with my plan. The next early morning, my parents arrived at our home by an express train. I left Lily in their care and headed back to my in-laws' house. My in-laws greeted me with a look of annoyance. "All this trouble because you couldn't keep an eye on your own daughter. Our summer holiday is ruined because of you." I ignored their griping and headed towards the living room. My husband and Emily sat there, faces downcast. I placed the divorce papers on the table. "We're getting a divorce." The ones taken by surprise were my in-laws. Neither my husband nor Emily reacted. Why are we hearing about the divorce from you? It's out of the blue. It was us who said we'd divorce if you couldn't bear a son. Please sign here and affix your seal. Fine. Nick, just sign it already. However, my husband didn't budge. Nick, what are you doing? From now on, we will involve lawyers and I'll be demanding alimony. Why should you get alimony? You're the cause of the divorce. My mother-in-law's face turned red with anger. However, I calmly denied her accusation. No, the reason for the divorce is my husband's infidelity. At this, my in-laws turned to look at my husband. He remained silent, neither denying nor confirming. That was the best evidence that what I was saying was true. Just a little cheating by a man? What kind of wife are you if you can't even be a bit forgiving? I think there's also a reason that he was led to cheat. Such absurd arguments were nothing more than a poor loser's excuse. I informed my in-laws about what I had witnessed. My husband's mistress is your beloved daughter, Emily. Upon pointing at Emily, my in-laws froze. When I returned home yesterday, the two of them were sleeping naked in bed. Even the memory of it sent shivers down my spine. Neither Emily nor my husband said anything in response to my accusation. Even my usually boisterous in-laws wore somber expressions. Is this true? My father-in-law finally broke his silence. However, neither of them responded. Answer me! At my father-in-law's angry voice, my husband timidly responded. It's true. His voice was barely audible. My mother-in-law clasped her head in disbelief. All right then, we'll discuss the details of our alimony and others through our lawyers. I stood up. I didn't want to spend another second in this house. Wait a minute. My father-in-law stopped me with his voice. We would like to keep this matter private, please. I'm not planning to spread this around to everyone. I'd like you not to mention it to your lawyer either. That's impossible. We have to set visitation rights, child support, and alimony. Without involving lawyers, it will just lead to disputes. We'll comply with all your demands. We'll pay all the alimony and child support, so please don't further expose our family's shame. With that, my father-in-law prostrated himself. Beside him, my mother-in-law also bowed her head. I was amazed by my in-laws, who were trying so hard to save face. I understand. I'll only deal directly with my husband then. Is that all right? Yes. Thank you. I headed straight for the front door. As I was putting on my shoes at the door, Emily ran up to me. Now that you've secured a big payoff, you have no complaints, right? I had no idea what Emily was talking about. Nick used to complain about you to me, saying you were arrogant despite not earning much. He called you a parasite. Apparently, she couldn't stand being at the losing end and came to say a nasty thing or two. I decided to tell Emily the truth. Nick seems to really like you. What? He probably wants to look good in front of you, even if it means lying. Lies? What lies? At least most of our household expenses are covered by my earnings. My husband does work, but he's only a temporary worker. What do you mean? He got fired from his previous company, and now he's working as a temp. Well, he should be able to live on his own, even if he divorced me. Emily looked genuinely surprised, apparently not knowing any of this. I'll make sure you pay for your sins, too. As I said this, I heard a car stop in front of the house. You remember we once had dinner with your fiancé, right? We made a group chat back then. So I've already informed your fiancé about this situation. As soon as I finished talking, Emily's fiancé, looking like he had seen a ghost, entered the house. Out of breath, the fiancé looked between Emily and me, then turned to me. Is what you said true? Of course, she just admitted it. Upon realizing her fiancé was there, Emily started to tremble and collapsed to her knees. What the hell is going on? You better explain. With the sound of the fiancé's angry voice behind me, I left my in-laws' house. I knew I would never return there again. After that, my husband and I got divorced. The alimony and child support were all settled to my satisfaction. This means I won't have to worry about money for a while. I also made sure to inform my husband's temp agency about our divorce and the reasons for it. As expected, his contract was terminated, and now he seems to be working part-time while living in an apartment. Emily's engagement was called off, and now she's living at my in-laws' house. Initially, they planned to kick her out, but decided to keep her there to ensure she and my husband never meet again. Thanks to my husband's leave, I was able to get rid of his bad debt and am now able to enjoy a relaxed and peaceful life with Lily in our apartment as before.
How can you go on a business trip abroad as a jobless person? Aren't you ashamed of yourself, coming out with a barefaced lie like that? It's not a lie. I really am going overseas for work. Right. Then we're divorcing, liar. With that, he left the room. To him, it seems I, who work from home, might as well be unemployed and lazy. I have a steady income and even contribute to the living expenses, and yet he won't acknowledge that. A few days after I returned from my business trip, I found divorce papers on my desk, already signed. I see. If he can't understand this far, there's no point being a couple, is there? I signed the divorce papers and headed to the state court. My name is Hannah Robinson, 29 years old. My husband's name is Jake, 30 years old. We started dating in college and got married when I was 25. We were more like best friends than lovers, and we always spoke our minds. It might be a good thing, but sometimes things take an unexpected turn. For me, it happened when I discussed my dream with him. My dream is to run an online imported goods store. The opportunity came during my part-time job at a boutique when I was a student. Having always liked foreign designs, I was attracted to the charm beyond my part-time job. After graduating from college, I aimed to open my own store and became a full-time employee at my part-time job. Even as a full-time employee, I could not give up my dream. I really want to have my own shop. Surrounded by my favorite foreign goods, I want to deliver them to my customers. My parents and friends gave me warm words like good luck and you will surely succeed. Jake will definitely understand my dream and support me. So I tried to bring up the topic subtly to Jake when he returned from work. Hey Jake, I've been talking about opening my own shop for a while, right? About that. Oh, not this again. It's not going to work if you do it on a whim. You should quit. Why would you say that? It's not a whim. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Impossible is impossible. Life isn't as sweet as you think it is. There's no need to be so harsh. Why do you always negate everything from the get-go? I raised my voice without thinking, my thoughts cavalierly dismissed. My husband Jake gives me a scornful glance, his voice ice cold. Then tell me, what's your plan if this venture of yours doesn't take off? I don't expect it to be successful right off the bat. And what about your income until then? The rent and living expenses we're splitting now. You're telling me I have to cover it all, right? No, that's not what I'm thinking at all. I have some savings for the initial investment, and I'll make sure to pay the rent. Oh, really? Then do as you please. But if it doesn't work out and you regret it, it's not my problem. Every time I bring up going independent, Jake always becomes irritable. The reason is simple, because my income would become unstable. The import shop I work at is well situated, and we have a wide customer base, so we get many customers. Thanks to that, my income is fairly high, nearly the same as Jake's, who works as an office worker. In fact, it might be a bit higher. That's why I've been covering meals when we go out and paying a little more for the rent. My decrease in income is something Jake simply cannot tolerate. At first, he says things like, "Why rush things?" and "You should take your time and prepare," in a kind tone. Now, however, he has no qualms about breaking my spirit. Even so, I did not give up on owning my own shop. No matter how much Jake opposed, I prioritized fulfilling my dream. As a result, I overcame his opposition, and at the age of 26, I started an online boutique. In the beginning, as Jake had predicted, it was difficult to get things running smoothly. But over the years, I implemented all sorts of strategies. I utilized the nature of the online shop, outsourcing to well-known e-commerce companies, promoting on social media, and doing all I could. Thanks to these efforts, a year after going independent, I was able to secure a steady income. From there, I expanded the customer base and products range, and now the annual sales have reached $300,000. Because Jake was so against it, I never spoke about the sales. I assumed he wouldn't be interested anyway. Of course he never asked. Still, he never fails to remind me about the rent and living expenses. I had always just given him the money he demanded without any fuss, and kept any work-related conversation as non-controversial as possible. But then, one day, something happened. I received this message in the DMs of my online shop. I'm a regular customer of your shop. I was wondering, in addition to the international knickknacks, could you also sell furniture? Actually, there had been numerous requests for me to add furniture to my offerings. However, unlike selling knickknacks, selling furniture online can be quite difficult. Furniture tends to be more expensive, and factors such as the material are also important. Even though I had worked in an import shop before, there are risks involved in sourcing furniture sight unseen and selling it. So I decided to call my old boss at the import shop to discuss the matter. Hello, is this the manager? I have something I want to discuss with you. As soon as the manager, Maggie, recognized it was me, she sounded genuinely excited. Hannah, it's been a while. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. Well, I've had some requests to sell furniture in my online shop. Furniture? That sounds like a challenge. So, I was thinking of checking out the actual items before selling them. How did you source your items, Maggie? I see what you're saying. I can definitely help with that. Maggie, who had connections with overseas suppliers from before, offered to contact one of them and arrange for them to provide furniture to my online shop. Thanks to my long-standing relationship with Maggie, the overseas supplier was happy to comply. With Maggie's suggestion, I decided I would travel abroad to source the furniture. However, I couldn't just go abroad without telling my husband. So that night, I broached the subject with him. Jake, about the week after next, would it be okay if I was away for about a week? A week? Why so long? Well, you see, I might have to go abroad for work with Maggie from the shop I used to work at. Huh? Abroad? If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. What? My husband pointed at me, his expression one of mockery. You're going overseas for work. You're practically unemployed. What are you even talking about? What? Wait a minute. You know I run an online shop, right? This trip abroad is for sourcing items for the shop. So you think I'll just believe you if you tell a work-related lie? Are you stupid? Your little amateur shop. There's only so far it can go. Think what you want, but right now, our sales are decent and our customers are increasing steadily. This time, it was because of a customer's request. You're too persistent. Anyway, I won't allow you, practically a shut-in, to leave home for a whole week. With a beer in hand, my husband stomped off to the bathroom. A deep sigh unconsciously escaped from my lips. Why can't he try to understand? His reaction is too harsh, just because he doesn't approve of my work. But I can't just go abroad without his permission. I must persuade him at any cost. Although I was hesitant to continue the discussion, I couldn't ignore the issue. The next day, when my husband came back from work, I spoke to him again. Jake, about yesterday's discussion. Look, I'm tired. I don't have time to indulge in your lies. Lies? I'm only speaking the truth. An unemployed person going on a business trip abroad. You're quite good at lying. I'm not lying. I really have to go abroad for work. At that moment, as I grabbed his arm to plead with him, he looked down at me as if to mock me. Oh, really? Then liars get divorced. Divorced? What are you saying? You know, I really can't stand liars, especially pointless people like you who are always trying to show off your success. I didn't mean... Shut up. You just want to use a lame excuse to go on a vacation abroad. I bet your boss is a man too, right? Divorce, divorce. I'll make sure to demand property division. Saying this, he stormed out of the room. At that moment, a furious rage swelled up within me, making my veins pop. Who does he think he is? He looks down on me just because I work from home. He only wants to feel superior. Enough is enough. If he wants it that way, then I'll do as I please. From then on, I stopped seeking his permission for my actions and decided to go on my business trip abroad. 2 weeks later, as scheduled, I headed overseas with Maggie. We went directly to our UK suppliers where we inspected the furniture and accessories that I would sell in my boutique. Taking advantage of being abroad, I spent the last day sightseeing with Maggie and was able to enjoy some fulfilling days. That said, it wasn't all smooth sailing. My phone was filled with a barrage of messages from my husband Jake. You didn't really go overseas, did you? Get back here right now. I'll forgive you if you return today. Time's up. We're getting divorced, you worthless woman. His every message filled me with irritation, but I didn't reply. I knew that any response from me would only escalate the situation. When I return, if he's open to it, we'll talk again. With that decision in my heart, I spent a carefree week abroad. The business trip was over, and I bid farewell to Maggie at the airport and set out on my return journey. Facing Jake was awkward, but I steeled myself and opened the front door. I'm home! The lights in the house were off, and there was no welcome back. As I headed to the living room, laundry was scattered on the floor, and there was no place to step. Used dishes and instant noodle containers were left as they were in the sink. In the midst of this, I glanced at the desk and saw a piece of paper. What is this? It was a filled-out divorce paper. Beside it was written roughly, To the cheating, jobless woman. I'm ending things with you who don't even listen. Fill out the divorce papers immediately. If you want forgiveness, come here at my parents' house. Then I'll reconsider. Just reading the note, I could picture Jake's smug face. He probably thinks that if he wrote this, I'd rush to apologize. Of course I had no such intentions. I signed the divorce papers that had been left for me and headed straight to the state court. With no problems, the divorce was accepted smoothly. Next, I went to the real estate agent and requested to cancel my current apartment lease. Actually, the place I'm living now is the apartment I lived in when I was single. Jake moved in when we started living together because it was spacious enough. We had talked about moving to a bigger place once we have kids, but there's no need for that now. After finishing the lease cancellation, I immediately started packing up. The next day, I sent all my belongings back to my parents' house and scheduled Jake's belongings to be delivered to his parents' house. All the while, he continued to send me messages filled with absurd demands. Stop being stubborn and come apologize now. You have until the end of the week, you hear? And so on. Of course, I ignored all of them, and after emptying the apartment, I headed back to my parents' home. A week later, my phone had been ringing non-stop since morning. Even though I ignored it, it just wouldn't stop ringing, so I reluctantly decided to answer. Planning for this call to be the last, I pressed the answer button. Hello? He started shouting at me right off the bat. What the hell do you think you're doing? Taken aback by his loud voice, I instinctively pulled my phone away from my ear. I decided to record the conversation just in case, and then I spoke again. What's the big deal? There's nothing left to talk about. Don't mess with me. Why all of my belongings were delivered to my parents' house. I just got to the apartment and it's completely empty. Oh, that? Well, I canceled the lease, so I had to get rid of everything, right? What? Canceled? How dare you do something like that on your own? On my own? The apartment was in my name. I can do whatever I want with it, can't I? At this point, I had nothing left to lose. To me, his words had no effect at all. As I responded in a provocative tone, Jake showed his irritation. Don't mess around. I don't give a damn about the lease. We were married, remember? I lived in that apartment too. You just went and canceled it on your own. Married? Yes, damn it. Whether you cheated or not, we're still married. Canceling the lease on our apartment without discussing it with your husband. What the hell are you thinking? You think you can just do whatever you want, even though you're unemployed. I'll never forgive you for this. He raged on, showing no consideration for my feelings whatsoever. That rant doesn't even care about me anymore. I decided to let him know the truth. Sorry to burst your bubble while you're getting all fired up about not forgiving me, but we're not married anymore, okay? What? What are you talking about? I submitted the divorce papers you left behind, so we're strangers now. Why should I continue renting a place for a stranger? Hold on, you're joking, right? You're basically unemployed. You'd be in trouble without me. What? Don't make me laugh. When did I ever say that? Caught off guard, Jake was at a loss for words over the phone. Seizing the opportunity to vent my pent-up frustration, I blurted out, "You've really looked down on me all this time. I'm not the unemployed or jobless person you think I am. I didn't cheat on you. I was traveling abroad for work to cater to my clients. If you can't believe that, that's fine. But just so you know, I'll never forgive you." Whoa, wait a minute. But your online store, it's not like the sales can just increase that. I've been working my butt off for the past 3 years. You don't know anything and didn't even try to understand, yet you keep making assumptions. 3 years? Just so you know, I've been making many times more than you. You looked down and belittled me. I don't want a marriage like this. You can live a miserable life on your own for all I care. With that, I hung up the phone, deleted his contact, and cut off all means of communication. It seems that he finally came to his senses and realized that many people are using my online store. He even heard about my success through mutual friends and once came to my parents' house, but I no longer have any intention of meeting or talking to him. Jake made the effort to visit my parents' house, but he was turned away at the door by my dad. Apparently, his own parents found out about his behavior towards me and kicked him out. Now, I heard he's renting an apartment near his workplace and just shuffling between home and work alone. As for me, I decided to live with my parents for a while. Thanks to my job, I can work from anywhere, which is a blessing. My parents' house is quite old, so I'm thinking of starting renovations soon. I'm sure my online store will continue to grow. Without having to worry about anyone else, I'm free to travel abroad whenever I need to. I may have a divorce on my record, but I don't regret prioritizing my dreams. I plan to keep working hard and return the favor to the people who have supported me.
One day, I came home to find my room completely empty. What the heck is going on? Behind me, I heard a triumphant voice from my sister-in-law. "Childless, unproductive old woman like you can do nothing but stand in my way. Get out." Sister-in-law was trying to move me out and take over my parents' house. I was single. That is ridiculous. I'll thoroughly investigate your wicked scheme. My name is Catherine. I'm a single 40-year-old office worker. It's not that I've never met someone good, but for various reasons, I ended up never getting married. Sometimes I feel lonely, but, well, that's life. I've reached the age where I can accept that marriage isn't everything. Being single is indeed carefree. Plus, there's a matter of taking care of my parents. I have one older brother, but he lives far away from our parents' home. My brother left our hometown to pursue his career, and since our father passed away 3 years ago, my mother had to live by herself. Living not too far from my parents' home, I became concerned about my elderly mother and decided to take the plunge and live with her. Now it's just the two of us, 2 women, enjoying our peaceful days. However, my mother, whose mind is still sharp, broke her leg a year ago and has become disabled. She has difficulty walking with a cane, and she mostly moves around by car or wheelchair. She's somewhat disabled in the house as well, and has become in need of care. Because I am single and able to live with her, she has been taken care of. If I were married and living elsewhere or living far away, it would have been quite difficult, so I guess it's been all right that I'm still single. Yeah. That said, while I'm content with my life, there's someone who's not happy about it, my sister-in-law. My brother married a woman who is much younger than him, so even though she is a sister-in-law, she is younger than me in her early 30s, a young sister-in-law. My brother's family lives far away, but they come home for the holidays like Christmas and summer vacation. However, for some reason, every time they visit, the sister-in-law is harsh towards me. This past Christmas, when my brother's family came to visit us, the sister-in-law came over and whispered in my ear, "Catherine, still mooching off your parents, I see." What? No, I'm not exactly mooching off them. Living at your parents' home at 40 years old and being single, if that's not a parasite, I don't know what is. Is that so? Yes, I'm raising 3 children, you know. Do you get what I mean? What do you mean? The population of our state is decreasing, isn't it? Our family is contributing to the population increase. Singles like you are truly harmful. Harmful? Do you enjoy decreasing the population? Is there any point in being born if you're going to be single for life? She goes that far. At least have a child or something. What she said struck a chord within me. Although I am single due to various reasons, there was a man I wanted to marry. But there was a bit of a problem with my body. Simply put, I can't have children. He asked me to be in a relationship with him, and since he had an intent for the future together from the beginning, I laid out everything on the table for him since day one. He said, "I just want to be with you, even if we don't have kids. As long as we're together, I'll be happy." So I agreed to date him. But marriage turned out to be more than just the two of us. The trials and dramas we went through ultimately led me to stay single. The appalling words of my sister-in-law left me speechless. And yet, she had the audacity to take advantage of me financially. We have 3 kids, you know. Be fair with your Christmas gifts. We expect them to be generous. We expect you to gift us some money as a kindergarten enrollment celebration, and it's gonna be at least for $1,000. You're not so poor that you can't afford that, right, Auntie? Don't you want to provide a proper education for the kids? Oh, right, you don't have any kids, so you wouldn't understand. But I let you have the joy of raising our kids, so pay for their extracurricular activities. It's like she thinks if she uses the kids as an excuse, she can get away with more money. Sure, I'll give gifts for occasions, but I don't understand why I have to bear with her tisk-tisking after she checks the amount of money in the envelope on the spot. And why should I be the one to pay for their extracurricular activities? When I bring it up to my mom or my brother, they make incredulous faces, unable to believe such audacity of my sister-in-law because they haven't seen it. That's right, she only ever behaves this way when it's just the two of us. She's pretty slick. This past New Year's holiday, she immediately opened the New Year's gifts I gave to my nephew and niece. It was while my brother was out of the room, having stepped away for a moment to help my mom with something. She spat out, "Huh? This is it? This paltry sum is your gift? Just how poor are you, you stingy bitch?" It's another comment that my mom and brother find hard to believe, so I'm thinking I should start recording her. However, there would be such negative repercussions on the family relationships if I keep tattling on, so I can't say much. After all, my mom has 3 adorable grandkids. If my complaints lead to my sister-in-law refusing to visit, my mom would be deprived of seeing her grandchildren. That would be too sad for my mom, so I just need to be quiet. If I can just dismiss her harsh remarks, everything will settle down. That's what I thought, until the situation completely changed one day. It was a weekday when my sister came over. It was during the week, so my brother was at work and I was working from home. My mom was at a senior daycare center. The kids were at the daycare and they were going to their maternal grandparents straight after. My sister-in-law was visiting me alone. I was wondering why she was here on such an unusual day. Then she got right down to business. "You know, I've been thinking that we should move in here." Excuse me? Talk about a bolt from the blue. What on earth is she trying to say? You mean move in? That's what I said. We've been thinking of moving in here. Who's we? Our family. Where exactly? Don't make me repeat myself. Into this house. Why? Because I'm pregnant with our 4th child. What? In my brother's family, they already have 3 kids. The oldest is in early elementary school. The middle one is a kindergartner, and the youngest just started preschool. Even though they already have 3 kids, they're having a 4th. I can't help but be impressed. However, they currently live near the sister-in-law's parents' house, so they probably get help with the kids like today. If so, what's the advantage of moving over here? John's gonna be transferred here, that's why. John is my brother. Oh, I remember my brother mentioning something like that. Apparently a branch office is going to open here in our hometown. Who wants to go to the branch office? Me. Apparently he volunteered for the position quite willingly. I wonder why the personnel decisions can be made so casually. Is it okay with you, sis? I mean, wouldn't it be better to stay closer to your parents' place? My parents are still working, so I really can't rely on them too much. They start to frown if I ask too often, saying stuff like, ask your husband first, or don't make children assuming you can depend on your parents. It'd be hard to mention that we were having a fourth, right? That's your business. How would I know? I can understand her parents' perspective. According to my brother, when he comes home from work, he does the cleaning, the laundry, and even prepares dinner. My sister-in-law confirmed that that is true. Even though he must be tired from work, my brother has always been very considerate of his wife and has helped as much as possible. It could be because of this that my brother seemed tired whenever I saw him from time to time. Still, isn't having another child a bit too reckless? Yet, life is a gift. It's a happy event, and I have no intention of saying, why not just stop having kids? But why are they planning on moving in with us? I must have looked puzzled, my sister-in-law continued. It's a hassle to deal with my parents, and where we live now is just too remote from everything and too inconvenient. So instead of letting John live and work by himself here, we thought it would be nice for all of us to move in. Well, there are a lot of daycares for kids here, right? So, Catherine, could you please move out soon? Excuse me? Once again, I'm taken aback. What the heck is my sister-in-law saying, for God's sake? As far as moving in, let's discuss that with my mother and brother, but why should I be the one to move out? Think about it. We're going to be a family of 6 soon, right? That's true. So isn't this house going to be too small? Well, that's true. Well, I suppose so. That's why I'm telling you to get out. No, I don't understand what you mean. Having 6 in the family is a lot, but it's not impossible for 8 of us to live together, including my mom and myself. Of course, when the kids grow up, it's impossible for all of them to live in an individual room, but I didn't think there was any point in worrying that far ahead. My sister-in-law, annoyed by my increasing confusion, raised her voice. I mean, come on. You're in the way. You, an old woman, can't even have kids. For our sake, get out. What? Oh, and don't move too far away, okay? You're still going to have to look after our kids. What? After ranting, she added, get out of here soon, and then went home. This needs a family meeting, yeah. That night, I told my mom about what Susan had said and called my brother. My brother told me that he'd arrange a separate house for his family. Sure, I've been traveling a lot for work, and I think it's been tough on Susan. That's why we were living near her parents' home in good old Nebraska. But is she really so bothered by the countryside? On the other end of the phone, my brother sounded confused. There was still something that was perplexing, but her idea of moving into our home was temporarily dropped. Well, that was supposed to be the case. One day, after a stretch of working from home, I went into the office for the first time in a while. My mom was away from home, staying overnight at the daycare. Exhausted from work, I came home to get stunned. What? My room? Everything's gone. Believe it or not, my room was empty. All of my belongings were gone. What is this? What's going on? This was undeniably my own home, yet my room was missing. To be precise, my stuff was missing. Where are all my favorite things? I threw them away. All of them. I was screaming in shock when a sudden voice came from behind me, making my heart skip a beat. When I turned around, there was Susan. Susan, what are you doing here so late? Shut up, you'll wake the kids. What? The 3 kids are here? Until the beds arrive tomorrow, they're sleeping on the living room couch. I rushed into the living room where my nephews and niece were sound asleep. What's going on? Looking at me, completely stunned and at a loss for words, Susan laughed and said, You wouldn't leave the house, so I had to resort to drastic measures. I'm not leaving. I've already talked to my brother about this. Do you think you can just do whatever you want? Don't you have any idea how many people you're inconveniencing? Who's the one doing whatever they want here? I'm the one inconvenienced. I really wanted to get those words out of my mouth, but I held my tongue because the kids were asleep. My sister-in-law, Susan, ignores my considerations and loudly declares, Who cares what your mother or brother says? If you move out and our family moves in, those 2 wouldn't oppose this idea for sure. What happened to my stuff? I had a junk removal service take it all away. No way. Did she really throw out all of my precious things, including my photo albums? This is unbelievable. Come on, if you understand, then get out. Wait, no arguing. I tried to resist, but she's younger and stronger than me. Overpowered, I was thrown out of the house, right there. It was at night, and making a fuss wouldn't do me any good. She ignored the doorbells and the phone calls as well. With no other choice, I spent the night at a no-frills hotel. The next day, I took a day off from work and rushed home. As I was about to unlock the door and enter the house, Susan came out faster. "Oh, Susan, I tried to contact my brother but couldn't reach him. Let's talk anyway. My husband is on a long business trip abroad. The time difference makes it hard to get in touch with him, you know. I was about to leave, so make sure you look after my kids." Susan! Leaving me in shock, she left quickly. She was all dressed up and everything. With no other choice, I looked after the 3 kids and had a bitter expression when I welcomed my mom home in the evening. "Mom, isn't this a bit much?" "Yes, it's a bit much to ignore John's opinions and be so forceful. Leaving the 3 kids and going out is unbelievable. If she wanted to leave the kids with someone, her own parents would be the best option." "Yes, what are the real benefits of living here?" Speaking of which, she went out quite dressed up. Really? There might be a clue in that. Agreeing with my mother's words, I immediately requested an investigation from a private detective. A month later, I now live in a 1-bedroom apartment as a temporary residence, which I had to find in a fluster. My room in my parents' house has been completely remodeled by Susan, and it's nowhere near what it used to be. John was furious, saying, "Don't do as you please," but she seemed to argue that once they moved in, it'd be their place. And she also seemed to say things like, "You're often away from work, aren't you? I thought it'd be nice for the family to stay together, so I came along. Raising children is really hard. It's just natural to live together with your family and get help from them." When he mentioned that my mother was in need of care, she responded, "Catherine is there, isn't she? She's just at home all the time. She must have a lot of free time." I'm not sitting around. I'm actually working from home. But Susan seems adamant about not letting me back into the house. Don't you dare think you can get away with this bullshit forever. We're gonna have a talk. With that assertive statement from my brother, a family meeting was held today. "Why so sudden? I'm pregnant. Let's wrap this up quickly, okay?" Susan grumbled as she rubbed her still not visibly pregnant belly. Ignoring her, my brother, Mom, Susan, and I, 4 adults, huddled together in the living room. By the way, we've left the kids at a weekend daycare. First off, Susan, please apologize for disposing of my belongings without my permission. At my words, Susan scoffed and said, "It's your own fault for not moving out sooner," without an ounce of hesitation. "People like you who can't even have kids should just live in a run-down apartment." Yes, it's true that I can't have kids, but I was living together for Mom's sake. "But your mother-in-law would be happier living with her grandkids than with you," Susan said, looking at my mom. My mom replied, "Of course I'd be happy to live with my grandkids," but hearing this, Susan smirked triumphantly. "See? Did you hear that? It's much more meaningful for us to live together than an unproductive person like you." But, ignoring Susan's words, Mom continued, "If they were my real grandchildren." "Huh?" Susan was dumbfounded, not understanding my mom's words. At that moment, my brother presented a large envelope. "What is this?" "The result of your affair investigation." My brother responded calmly. "Huh?" Susan seemed surprised and stared at my brother, who continued speaking, unflustered. "You thought we wouldn't find out, didn't you?" What are you talking about? I didn't cheat on you." "Really? So these pictures are photoshopped, huh?" In response to Susan's denial, my brother spread several pictures on the table. In them, wait, no. There were photos of Susan flirting with a guy. "I thought it was strange when you forced us to move away from our parents who help with the kids to move in here." "But the city is more convenient, isn't it?" "But you're not even using any childcare services and pushing the childcare onto Catherine, aren't you?" "Well, I need a break too." "Then why not use the childcare service like today?" "It's a waste of money." "Do you think I haven't given you enough money?" "I'm saving up for our future." "What does that mean when our bank account is down to 0? Saying this, John spread the bank book. Indeed, it was completely 0. "What? Hey, why are you just looking through that like it's nothing?" "It's our family money. Of course I have the right to check." So where's the savings for our future? Well, in a different account. Oh, really? Let's see that bank book then. I don't have it right now. Where is it? Well, As I watched her continue lying, Susan finally stumbled on her words. Although it wasn't particularly hot, sweat trickled down her forehead. Maybe in the attic? At that moment, John smacked the table hard. Enough with the lies. Can you still make excuses in front of this picture? Oh, sorry. It was just a momentary lapse of judgment. You've been having an affair with this man for a while. Ever since we got married, right? The guy told me. What? No, why did you talk to him? He's got a family too. He told me everything under the condition that I wouldn't tell his wife. What? He betrayed me. The one who betrayed us is you. Susan seemed flustered in front of John's angry face, but eventually she seemed to regain her composure and the sweat had stopped. Then she said, Well, I do regret the affair. I won't do it again. Of course not. But I think it's better not to divorce. It's better for the kids to be with their mother, and more importantly, I'm carrying a new life in my womb. You don't want to be apart from the child, do you? Looking at me, Susan continued. You can't expect grandchildren from a childless daughter, and if I take the kids and leave after the divorce, you'll never see your grandkids again. Is that what you want, mother-in-law? Then she turned towards my mother. Seeing our silence, Susan laughed triumphantly. See? Isn't a barren old woman just a nuisance? It's natural that she should leave. Susan stomped around, huffing and puffing. But then, something unexpected happened. Mother quietly said, Well, you who are totally unproductive to me should also leave with your child. Huh? As she started to smile, puzzled by what she heard, John presented a document to her. What's this? Huh? DNA test results? Negative? What is this? It's the result of a DNA test between me and the kids. When did you? That ain't none of your business. Anyway, the results are as they are, all three. They aren't my kids. And here are the results with your affair partner. Confirmation, meaning they are indeed your kids. What? Huh? My kids ain't mine, meaning they're not my ma's grandchildren. They're complete strangers. No way. It ain't a lie. You knew it, didn't you? You knew, and you pulled a cuckoo move on me, didn't you? I didn't. That's what the other guy said. You said, it's sad that our children can't live together as a family, to him. Susan looked so pale, she might fall over at any moment. And then my mom gave the coup de grace. So you're a burden because you can't bear my son's children. Please pack up and leave with the kids and hurry. What? Are you going to throw us out into the street? Such young kids? You monster! It was then that Susan cried out, trying to elicit sympathy. The monster here is you. A different loud voice echoed through the room. Susan spun around and her eyes bulged. Dad? Why are you here? And Mom too? Yes, there stood Susan's real parents. They've agreed to take all the children once I explain the situation. You stupid daughter. Can there be a more disgraceful story as a parent? I'm sorry. Apparently, Susan can't hold her ground against her father. Her face turned blue as she sobbed. John, and to his mother, and Catherine, I'm really sorry for my stupid daughter. We'll definitely make her pay for the damages. Damages? Wait a minute. I can't afford that. Are you going to pay for me, Dad? No way. I'll front you, but you're paying me back even if it takes you a lifetime. So, her father took Susan, who was seriously on the brink of tears, away without waiting for a reply. Her mom, who kept bowing deeply to us in apology, was quite memorable. Even though they're good parents, they raised such a daughter. Raising kids is tough, isn't it? I found myself musing about this in a rather carefree way. Then afterward, my brother John ended up getting a divorce without a hitch. The money for the alimony and what she had splurged on her infidelity was apparently paid off all at once by her parents. The kids were taken back to their grandparents' home. They had often been left there before, so it seems they're growing up just fine without any confusion. The kids didn't do anything wrong. John, who had always thought they were his real children, said this with a touch of sadness. There's no way you can accept it when you're suddenly told they're not yours. I'm hoping that one day John's emotional wounds will heal. 3 years later, John found a good match and had his real child. But that's another story. As for my brother's ex-wife, Susan, she gave birth to her 4th child, and sure enough, when she tested it for peace of mind, it wasn't John's child. Under strict supervision of her parents, She seems to have been working like mad from morning till night for a while, but she seemed to continue her relationship with her lover undeterred. In the end, her affair was also exposed to her lover's wife. After the huge fight, more alimony was incurred, and it seems she was kicked out of the house by her parents. No one knows what became of her after that. As for me, I'm living peaceful days while taking care of my mom, same as always. In fact, the personal items she disposed of were all retrieved on the same day by contacting the waste disposal company. On such a peaceful day, a familiar face appeared before me. It's been a while. The person smiling before me was the guy I once thought of marrying. I couldn't forget about you, and I have been single all this time. Even my parents finally gave in. They have a rather selfish reason. My brother got married and had a child. They told me I could do as I please about marriage. Caught off guard, he presented me with a ring. It may be too late, but I can't think of anyone but you. I want to help you take care of your mother, so could you please marry me? Unable to hold back, my face crumpled in tears. Without hesitation, I jumped into his arms, where he held me with a gentle smile.
I had accumulated daily fatigue and was just taking a brief nap when my husband came home and was furious at the sight of me. "Just a part-timer and you're napping? Get a hold of yourself." "I didn't mean to, No housewife should sleep more than 3 hours. If you sleep a minute over, we're getting a divorce." He must have thought he'd won the argument, smirking at me. But I'm not a weak person who backs down from such things. I'll use his words against him and turn the situation around. My name is Rachel Williams, and I'm 28. After marriage, I quit my job to become a full-time housewife supporting my husband. My husband, Jack, is 32. He is an engineer at an IT company and was my former boss. We originally knew each other from work, and he was the one who approached me. For better or worse, my husband can be very strict. Even when we were dating, I was often scolded. Does anyone normally speak like this to their partner? That's what I first thought. He distinguishes between public and private and doesn't let personal feelings interfere. I was attracted to his straightforwardness. It was his idea for me to become a full-time housewife. When I was contemplating continuing my work after marriage, he said, "I want you to take care of the house. I'll be the one to work and earn for us." I remember responding anxiously. "But wouldn't it be better to keep working and save up until we have kids?" "I want the house to be clean when I come back. I'm not good at housework, so I want to ask you, Rachel." "I see. If that's what you want, Jack, I guess I'll give being a housewife a shot." "Yeah, please do. I can take care of the income on my own." And so I became a full-time housewife just as my husband wanted. I was never particularly good at housework, but I didn't dislike it. After a year of marriage, I've come to realize something. Being a full-time housewife is surprisingly unbusy. Typically, the picture of a housewife is someone who's so consumed by chores that they barely have any time for themselves. But in reality, I'm done with all my housework by noon. Living in a single-story house might be a factor, as it's not as large as a 2-story home, thus less cleaning. Additionally, we don't have any kids, so it doesn't take that much time. Preparing meals is simple enough. Once I make breakfast and dinner for the both of us, I just whip up something quick for my lunch. Laundry isn't a daily task, which inevitably leaves me with free time. Another boring day. I sigh softly as I watch daytime TV. I could go out, but I don't have an income of my own, so shopping isn't exactly guilt-free. Meeting up with friends is difficult too, because everyone works during weekdays. On top of that, we live far from the town, out in the countryside. I would have preferred to live in an apartment near my workplace, but my husband Jack wanted our own home, so we ended up buying a newly built house in this remote rural area. It's fields as far as the eye can see, with the neighbors' houses quite far apart. Making new friends in such a place is next to impossible. Nonetheless, I have to remember that it was Jack who took out a mortgage to buy this house for us. As a full-time housewife, I'm not in a position to complain. I started doing this diet dance I saw on TV out of sheer boredom. It's simply dancing along to the videos they show. It works out the whole body, and my figure is becoming more toned with every session. I initially started it so as not to disappoint Jack after our marriage, but it has since become a daily routine. Once I finish my diet dance, I find myself with nothing to do. This leaves me with way too much time on my hands. I couldn't stand it anymore and decided to discuss it with Jack when he came home. "Hey Jack, can we talk?"
"Huh? What's up?"
"You know, I've been thinking, a year into our marriage, being a full-time housewife leaves me with a lot of free time. I was thinking maybe I could start working a bit."
"Work? No, I want you to take care of the house perfectly."
"I understand that, and I'll continue doing the housework properly. But it feels like a waste to just sit at home doing nothing." My husband Jack seemed discontent with the request, but I continued to explain my intentions to him nonetheless. "Please, Jack, even if it's just a part-time job for a few hours, can't I work a little?"
But what part-time jobs are even around here?"
"The bakery nearby is hiring part-timers. It's just about 4 hours in the afternoon, and it won't interfere with the housework, okay?"
Alright, but under one condition. Don't slack off with the housework, okay?"
"Sure, thank you, Jack." With his permission, I went to the bakery in our neighborhood the next day. They seemed to be short-staffed, and I was hired on the spot. That's how I started working outside again after a year. There was a pile of unfamiliar tasks I had to learn, but I was more than happy to be able to work. Maybe because my daily life became a bit tougher, I started sleeping more soundly than before. Then, one day, my usual 5 p.m. part-time shift ended up being extended until 6 p.m. I rushed home and started preparing dinner, but Jack got home before it was ready.
"I'm home. What's going on? Is dinner not ready yet?"
"I'm sorry, I just got home myself. We had a lot of customers today, so I had to stay until 6 p.m.
"Overtime?"
"But it'll be ready soon. Jack, please have a seat and wait." Then, suddenly, I heard Jack's loud tisk. I stopped my hands in surprise and saw him glaring at me with a fierce expression. Jack?
"This is exactly why I told you to stay a housewife. I knew from the start that the housework would be neglected."
"Wait a minute, today was just a one-time thing."
"Don't talk back. Didn't we promise that you won't slack off on the housework? Despite that, what's with this situation? Are you mocking me?"
"I'm not trying to mock you." I was taken aback by Jack's expression, which I had never seen before, and my voice trembled in fear. I was so scared that my legs gave out and I dropped the spatula. Regardless of my state, he continued to yell at me.
"If something like this happens again, I'm going to make you quit your part-time job, got it? If you're fine with that, then go ahead. I mean it."
Leaving these words behind, Jack hurriedly left, saying,
"I'm going out to eat."
Released from my anxiety, my tears began to flow uncontrollably. Why did he get so angry just because I was a bit late? It was just because work ran late today. I mulled over my actions, but I could not comprehend his anger. From that day on, Jack's patriarchal behavior escalated. He treated me as if I was a maid.
"Hey, when will you finally get it together and make a decent packed lunch? This is disgusting."
I'm sorry, but I made the fried chicken you liked today."
"How many times have I told you not to talk back? Because of your terrible lunches, I've been forced to buy convenience store meals for lunch. I'll deduct that from next month's household expenses, got it?"
"But you've been steadily reducing the budget compared to before. It's already a stretch as it is."
"Shut up. All of this is because you're incapable. Or what? Are you saying we should divorce now, huh?"
Jack pulled out a filled-out divorce form from his bag and thrust it in front of me. I had no choice but to apologize. I knelt there, begging for forgiveness until he was satisfied. I'm sorry. Living through this hell, the word divorce gradually started to flicker in my mind. But I was just a part-timer with no life skills. I could hardly muster the courage to take the step towards divorce. I gradually got used to waking up at 5 a.m. and quietly cleaned the house and prepared breakfast. I finished all the housework and dinner preparation in the morning, then headed to my part-time job in the afternoon. Those were my days. Of course, if you keep up with this routine, fatigue builds up. In my case, the emotional exhaustion was more severe than the physical. One day, the store manager at my part-time job seemed to notice my condition.
Rachel, you seem tired lately. Are you okay?
Manager, I'm sorry. I'm fine.
You look awfully pale. It's slow today. Why don't you clock out early?
But...
No buts. Consider it a thank you for your hard work. Take one of those freshly baked breads we just made.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Grateful for the manager's generosity, I decided to leave work early. As soon as I got home, I surrendered to my fatigue and collapsed onto the couch. The next thing I knew, I had fallen asleep. A few hours later...
Hey, wake up already.
Huh?
Wake up, you lazy bum. What are you doing sleeping?
Jolted awake, I found my husband Jack shouting furiously with a demonic expression on his face. When I managed to sit up and look at the clock, it was already past 6:30 in the evening. I felt the blood drain from my body, and the warning signs flashed in my mind.
Do you ever get tired of making me angry?
I'm sorry.
Do you think you can take a nap because you're just a part-time worker? Getting a little too comfortable, aren't we?
It's not like I was trying to.
Don't talk back to me. No housewife should sleep over 3 hours in the afternoon.
As I fell silent, Jack continued to glare down at me with his terrifying expression.
Why are you silent? It's your own laziness that's the problem, isn't it? It's a luxury for a housewife to sleep more than 3 hours. If you ever exceed a minute of those 3 hours, I'll divorce you in a heartbeat. Got it?
Huh?
It's not a huh. You're living a comfortable life because of me. So just shut up and listen. You're so useless.
That's when it happened, when the frustration that had been building up inside me exploded. Why hadn't I realized this before? This life, I was only torturing myself. I am done being a slave. I'm going to end this life as quickly as possible. After the perfect revenge, of course. I whispered softly in front of him. I understand, but remember, no complaints no matter what happens, okay?
Huh? What do you mean no matter what happens? At most, you'll probably collapse from lack of sleep.
We'll see. Anyway, I'll stick to the 3-hour sleep rule, so don't worry.
It'll be interesting to see how long you can keep this up. You'll probably end up divorced soon.
My husband laughed smugly. But for me, divorce was already a done deal. Now the only thing left was to take my revenge on him. That was the only thing on my mind. When I woke up, it was 2 a.m. Since I fell asleep at 11 p.m., it was exactly 3 hours of sleep. When I turned on the light in the bedroom, my soundly sleeping husband groaned and covered himself with a blanket. Ignoring him, I took out the vacuum cleaner and started cleaning the room. Surprised by the sound, my husband jumped up and yelled at me.
Hey, what are you doing? Do you even know what time it is?
Huh? It's just a bit past 2 a.m.
Are you nuts? Why the hell are you vacuuming at this ungodly hour? Show some common sense.
Muttering to himself, my husband covered himself with the blanket again. Once I made sure he had fallen back asleep, I headed to the living room next door. Turning on the TV as loudly as I could, I started playing a high-energy aerobics workout video. Dancing along with the video, I could hear loud stomping from the next room. A red-faced Jack was glaring at me. And once again, he yelled at me. You, don't mess around. I said it's too noisy. Oh, sorry. I'll lower the volume a bit. That's not the point. Your dancing noise is resonating and it's too loud. Just be quiet and sleep. Well, I can't do that because I already slept for 3 hours today. What? Anyway, it's disturbing the neighbors. Don't worry about it. After all, we live in the countryside and there aren't any houses around, are there? Haha. Huh? With a twisted expression, Jack looked at my beaming face. From that day on, I began to wake up at 2 a.m. every night to do all the housework. From 2 a.m., I ran the vacuum cleaner, the washing machine, and everything else. The spare time was for dancing exercises. Continuing this routine, Jack finally cried out a week later. I beg you, give me a break. I have an important meeting first thing in the morning. Huh? But I have to do the housework. Just sleep, please. But I've already slept for 3 hours. That's the rule, right? Oh, should I make some coffee to avoid getting sleepy? I'll start from grinding the beans in the mill. Wanna join? Please spare me. I beg you. I'm on my knees. For the first time, Jack bowed his head to me. Looking down at him, I coldly retorted, Is that all you wanted to say? Huh? You only bow your head for your own sake? Nothing else to say? No, I just want a good night's sleep for tomorrow's meeting. At his words, love froze from the bottom of my heart. He didn't think anything of the harsh words he had been saying to me? Huh? You want to sleep in? You push housework onto others and then tell them not to sleep more than 3 hours while you intend to sleep as much as you want? Don't be ridiculous. What do you think I've been feeling all this time living like this? You who can't even understand people's feelings have no right to marry and support someone. Hey, calm down. I didn't mean to. You've said it before, haven't you? Don't make excuses. I'll throw those words right back at you. Instead of making excuses, how about just saying, I'm sorry. I'm completely fed up with you. You're such a jerk, I'll divorce you. I pulled out the divorce papers from his bag and filled them out on the spot. The next morning, I submitted the divorce papers at the city hall and packed my things to return to my parents' home. And so, I put an end to my relationship with my dominating husband. Afterwards, Jack's life was completely changed by my absence. The house turned into a mess, and even his suits for work became disheveled. He began eating out for every meal and soon fell ill. He started going to work looking worse every day, and people at work began distancing themselves from him. Hey, did you hear that Jack got dumped by his wife? That's plausible. Jack is harsh to others, but super lenient with himself. And not very competent either. Whispered gossip began to spread, and it became increasingly uncomfortable for him at work. I heard he's been absent without permission a lot lately. If things keep going this way, it'll only be a matter of time before he gets fired. As for me, I'm now commuting from my parents' house to the bakery. When I told the manager about my divorce, he asked me to work full-time. The salary is good, so I plan to continue working there for a while. I will live my life to the fullest from here on out.